All right, here is where we are at. We've got the tail hinge all welded and into place. We ended up pulling outside. We put the prop rods on, and we welded the rubber sills, or the T-channel that holds the rubber, to the bottom of the silage box sills. We've got mud flaps on in front of the tires. However, we still got to mount this one on the back side yet. What I have is a pneumatic lockup assembly here that is run off of an air cylinder. However, when I got done with this silage box here last spring, we were running out of time, and I did not put the lockup assembly on the underneath side. All we have is that lockup little tab coming through. So I've got to put an 1.25 inch rod across the main cells to hook up the linkage to it. And then what that is a cam over design. What that'll do is it'll cam over. Air cylinder will run the lock back and forth. And then the mechanism, being that it cams over, it won't unlock until that cylinder releases it the other way. So that's what we have to do now. We have to put the actual lockup in there. I've got 1.25 inch cold roll on the floor. We need to cut a hole in this sill from one side to the other, and then the linkage will hook up from this lock assembly like we were talking about to hold the tailgate shut. We've got mechanical locks on here as well. The mechanical locks are for, holding grain and whatever. This lock here is strong enough to hold the grain, but you want a safety on there just so that if you hit a bump in the road or something, if that mechanism happens to release itself, you do not want to have that come open. So you need to have a manual lock on as well. For silage, we really don't need this lock on there. The gate is heavy enough, and we have it hinged forward enough that if the tailgate opens, it's only going to open, maybe 1 inch or so. These tailgates are pretty heavy, at least the ones that I build are, to be able to stay against the silage. But having this pneumatic lock assembly on there is nice. If we're going across rough ground, you don't hear that tailgate banging against the box all the while you're traveling across the field. So that's what we're going to work on here now. We've got the hoses plumbed in for the tailgate. However, I have not hooked the hoses up coming off of the cylinders yet. I've got a T that I'm going to put in just ahead of where the pneumatic cylinder is going to mount, and rather than dealing with working around hoses, I'll wait to put the hoses on once I get that pneumatic cylinder in place. So we've got a little bit of paint that we've got to reapply or put on the tail hinge assembly. I've got bolts stuck in the hole where I want to put grease zerks. I stuffed a bolt in them threaded holes just so that we wouldn't have a burr of weld or something get down in that threaded spot. So we need to pull them bolts out and be able to put zerks in there and grease that. But we'll go ahead and get things started here. We've got a bearing that we're going to put on each side of that sill. I've done this a couple of different ways. We've got just a regular pillow block bearing like this. Going to mount to a piece of angle iron. The angle iron will weld to the side of the sill, whichever way, and then the cold roll will go through this bearing. And that's what we're going to have and how we are going to mount that. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll show you as we go along how that's all going to fall into place. Jared has this manifold back on this International. He's got the manifold on there, turbo's mounted. He had to put some exhaust pieces in to go underneath the cab. He's also replaced, which you can't see it, it's kind of buried in there. He's also replaced the cab mount that was mucho broken. Now the bottom of this mount was broke out, and this bracket was setting down on this wire harness. So it had some of the wires pinched down underneath that bracket. Here is the old bracket here. We'll kind of show you what things look like. So this, the cab saddles against here, and then this was down on top of the mount like that with the wires crushed clear in underneath it. So he's got a little bit left to getting this put back together, and we've got some brake components to go back on this side, and then the wheels can go on, and this truck will be basically done. They've got some lumber that they're going to go ahead and put on the frame that goes between the sills and the truck frame. That is the way we used to do it years ago. We just used a piece of 2-inch thick rough cut lumber and fastened it to the truck frame to add as a cushion to go between the rails and the truck frame. The rubber is a lot more expensive, but it's a little cleaner looking job, and it works really well. It's about $1,200, I think, to put rubber on, and it's about $60 to put the lumber on there. So let's go ahead and get after it here. Well, we're getting our pieces put together for that tailgate lock system there. Jared's got the exhaust manifold on. Everything is all set to go here. Now another thing that they've been working on is they've been working on getting these brakes set. So this truck is just about done. They are going to put some new rubber on the frame, and we kind of talked about that briefly here. But this truck will be ready to go in just a few hot moments. To recall, in the last video, Jared ended up replacing, and I better replace that too. Maybe it'll be all right. But Jared replaced the exhaust manifold, gaskets. He also replaced that cab mount that's on this right hand side, and he's also done some exhaust work. So that is that. We'll get on with it here. Well, we are just getting back here to the farm. We went out and picked up the chopper. Both me and Jared rode over to Kaz in the Volvo in this trailer. We picked the chopper up, and we brought back the silage blade that is going to go on that 9620. So we're going to go ahead and get this unloaded. But before we unload that, we'll show you what kind of work got done to this chopper. We ended up replacing the kernel processor. Actually, we bought a new kernel processor, and we're running a shear now, and the shear processor has a different way to lubricate the bearings, and we actually had to have an air compressor installed on the chopper. So we got an air compressor right here. They had to change the pulleys around, added this air tank. And what that's going to do is it's going to push lubricant to the actual processor itself. We'll get things opened up here. We'll just kind of show you what it all consists of. Here is the lubrication unit here. Air pressure is going to go ahead and run a mister to mist the bearings that are on the rolls themselves. So we'll end up pulling this processor out here in a couple of days whenever we get a chance to get this back around and into the shop. We do need to go through and put new knives on the corn head, and then we can go ahead and put this chopper away. We did have an extensive amount of work done to this. We had all 4 feed rolls replaced. We had the 2 in the front done, the smooth roll, and the feed roll in the back. We had a new cutter head put into this back in July. I ended up replacing the blower paddles in like August, and they went ahead and put a new clutch, cutter head drive clutch, or actually they rebuilt it, the drive clutch that runs the cutter head. Another thing that we had done to this is we had the Pro Drive transmission gone through just so that we wouldn't see any problems with it. Chopper's got 3,700 hours on the engine, and I think it was like 2,400 or something like that on the cutter head. So we're going to go ahead and get this silage blade off the trailer, and as soon as I get a spot opened up in the shop, we can start working on this 9620. We have to take the wheels off of it in order to put the weights on there, and it'll aid in being able to put the silage blade on as well, having them front wheels off. Let's go ahead and get this blade unloaded. Well, we're getting ready to pick this off, and they've got things stacked on top of this moldboard here. They've got the actual hydraulic swing arm assembly, and the pieces that actually go on the tractor are setting in 2 different pieces, setting on top of the actual moldboard. So we're going to pick the one section off that has the lift cylinders on it, set that down, then we'll come back and grab the part that goes on the actual tractor itself. Well, we've got the frame left. That actually goes on the tractor itself. We'll go ahead and lift that off. It looks like it's got this moldboard warped a little bit. You see that? No. All that weight on there. Well, as you can see, this wire has some pretty strong stuff. That one loop that he had wasn't quite off of there. It was cut through, but it was still bent around it. And it wanted to lift the whole blade off. We'll make sure we don't pinch any of these hoses here. Well, we managed to get everything unloaded, and when we get caught up with the stuff that we're working on in the shop, we'll get to assembling this. So this piece here would go on the tractor, and then that piece bolts to the blade. That'll stay on the blade, and then this will go on the tractor piece, and then this is the actual hitch point to attach to and from the actual blade assembly here. So that'll be a project for next week. So we might as well go ahead and get back in the shop here, and we'll get working on this truck. We went after this stuff today because the roads were dry, and it's gonna end up raining the rest of the week here, so we'll get after it.